the Philadelphia 76ers are first in the Eastern Conference, but me specifically, I'm questioning them if they're contenders or pretenders. I'm leaning towards the side that they are pretenders because I've seen Philadelphia in the past. They have pretty good regular seasons, and in the playoffs, they fold. I've seen Doc Rivers teams in the past be really good in regular season and fold in the playoffs. And even though Brett Brown, I don't believe he was a good coach. I think firing him was a long overdue. They should have did it way earlier than they did. Doc Rivers has been excellent, but if this was any other year, like if this was last year, I would have said the 76ers are going to make the finals. I would have actually picked them to make the finals if we got this Philly team last year. But because Brooklyn is in the East and they have KD, Harden, and Kyrie, for me, a pretender is a team that's not going to make the finals. That doesn't mean they're not a great team. They're just a team that's not going to make the finals. I don't think any team in the East is going to make the finals over the Nets. You look at the 76ers, 10-8 against 500 teams this season, and the only team outside of Philly in the East that has a winning record against 500 teams is Brooklyn at 14-5. Every other team in the Eastern Conference has a losing record against 500 teams, and when you compare Philly to Brooklyn, yes, Embiid will probably dominate that series. But he dominated the series last year against Boston. It did not get them not one win. They got swept. So what makes me think that Embiid can dominate and lead the 76ers to victory when KD cancels out Embiid? And now you got Harden and Kyrie, and who else is going to step up? Ben Simmons has been playing better this season. He had a late 3 against the Cavs, but he still can't shoot. And if you can't shoot, teams are going to game plan around that. Danny Green, very inconsistent in the playoffs. Tobias Harris, last year in the playoffs against the Celtics, played really bad. I like Seth Curry, but Sixers don't have enough for me to say that, yeah, they're going to, I'm going to give them a chance to make the finals. I don't even give them a chance. It's Brooklyn and everybody else for me.
Now, this is where, because I was going to say to you, what do you consider a pretender versus a contender? I consider the Sixers contenders because I would have them at least third, if not second, in the Eastern Conference right now on who I would think would go to the finals from the East. I think the Nets are going to make it out of the Eastern Conference just because the defense is starting to come along, and matchup wise, it's really impossible to match up with those three guys. Embiid definitely scares you because you don't have a defensive big inside. You would probably rely on DeAndre Jordan, maybe Nick Claxton. So Embiid would get his, but when you look at it, is Embiid going to be able to produce at the rate that Kevin Durant, Kyrie, and James Harden are going to based on their matchups? I mean, you look at it, would it be Embiid on Kevin Durant or Simmons on Kevin Durant? And then what do you do with James Harden? You have to put Simmons on Harden, I would imagine, which leaves Kevin Durant with Embiid. I think that's a mismatch. And Kyrie guarded by anybody. Who's it going to be, Danny Green? That's a mismatch. So there's mismatches all over the floor. But I don't think that, I would say I definitely consider the 76ers contenders, if for no other reason than how weak the Eastern Conference has been this year. Because outside of the Nets, I look around the conference and I see the Sixers and the Bucks as the only two semi-threats, and both of those teams are kind of remind me of each other in a sense that they both have a lot to prove in the playoffs. Coach all the way down the roster have struggled in the playoffs in the past and have high expectations year in and year out and almost never meet them. So it's going to be interesting to see if either of those teams can rise to the occasion. It sucks for them that the Nets went out and traded for James Harden, and now they have a pretty unguardable big three, but they got to step up. And this is how many opportunities is Giannis going to have? You're starting to see the reputation for him change. Embiid is going to probably be the same way, where if he doesn't start winning, he's going to start to get that reputation of a guy who plays great in the regular season but just can't do it when it comes down to the big moments.
As long as Embiid doesn't win the MVP, I don't think that will happen, because we see the same thing happen with Dame right now, where Dame is in. He's a superstar. Damian Lillard is a superstar. We all know that. But he's not held to the standard of a James Harden, of a Steph Curry. he's not held to that superstar standard because we all love Dame and we know that even though he's really great, he's probably not going to win the finals. We've already accepted that. We don't hold Dame to that standard. He doesn't get crucified for shrinking the playoffs because there have been moments. You look at 2019, I believe, when the Rockets faced the Warriors. The Rockets lost in 6 games. Kevin Durant was there for 4 games and 3 quarters. The Rockets only faced the Warriors for 1 game and a quarter and lost that 1 game, and everybody talked about how Harden choked and everybody on the Rockets choked when they had Kevin Durant for 4 games. And Kevin Durant, in the first 2 games, the Warriors took a 2-0 lead, and he was dominating the Rockets. The Blazers faced the Warriors 4 games with no KD, and they got swept. Nobody talked about it. Nobody really cared. But the Rockets lose 1 game against Steph, Clay, and Dre. Oh, it's the end of the world. You got to blow up this Rockets team. We don't hold Dame to that standard. I don't think Embiid will be held to that standard either. But you talked about the Bucks. I'm not certain if the 76ers can beat the Bucks. I mean, you look at Giannis. He's going to be guarding Embiid. Lopez is there too. He's a pretty good shot blocker, even though Embiid will dominate that matchup. But we've seen in the past where Embiid has struggled against guys like Marc Gasol. He struggled against Marc Gasol when they faced Toronto. So we've seen things like that. I think that Embiid's growth in shooting is going to help that because he's a much improved shooter, so that's going to help. But you look at the 76ers versus the Heat. I take Philly in that series, but I could see an argument for why the Heat could win. And then 76ers versus Brooklyn, I don't see them beating Brooklyn, so that's the thing for me. If any other year, I would have picked Philly to win the East. But because of the Nets, I just don't see it. I think this season they're pretenders. That does not mean I think they should blow it up, though. I think they should keep this core together and keep adding on to it because you got to at least hope that Simmons can find that jump shot because once he finds it, now we're talking about this whole narrative is completely switched.
Is he going to, though?
I don't know, man. That jumper against Cleveland looked pretty sweet.
How many times are we gonna do this dance though, where we see him hit a jump shot and we're like, oh, this could be it. This could be the turning point, and then you don't see him shoot again for 4 weeks. He's got to do it eventually, and if he does develop a jump shot, the Sixers are scary because Ben Simmons would be one of the most versatile players in basketball. It doesn't even have to be a great jump shot. Even if he could get it to like 30% and consistently shooting the ball, that's scary. But he's got to do that. And when he does, the Sixers would be very dangerous.
Yeah, I mean, hopefully they make it to the Eastern Conference Finals at least. I think they can do that. It really depends on the matchups. If they face the Bucks in the second round, that's going to be tough.
Yeah, it depends how the seeding shakes out because I think it really boils down to the Nets, the Bucks, and the Sixers. 2 of those 3 teams will be in the Eastern Conference Finals, in my opinion.